welcome back. That's Artist Soul, a Canadian-based artist performing for us right here on this special program dedicated to young people. Well, our next guest is more than a public official. He represents a compelling case study in what's possible when youth ambition meets public service. Honorable Olubunmi Tunji, Nigeria's Minister of Interior, has become one of the most prominent faces of the current administration, not only for the reform he leads, but for how he got there. From the private sector to the House of Representatives and now to the Federal Executive Council, his journey reflects the aspiration of millions of young Nigerians who wonder if real influence is within reach. At 41, his ascent to one of the nation's most strategic ministries challenges the notion that leadership is out of touch or out of bounds for the next generation. In office, he has driven reforms in service delivery, particularly in the immigration sector, simplifying processes, addressing backlogs, and raising the standard of public engagement. But tonight, we look beyond the achievement of the office. We ask, what does his part tell us about public or political inclusion, merit, mentorship, and the road ahead for the youth leadership in Nigeria's next decade? We're honored to have him with us right here as we continue this important conversation on empowering the future. Our guest right here, please let's put our hands together for the Honorable Minister himself, Olubunmi Tunji. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
So the president actually did promise in his renewed up agenda. He said he's going to appoint 3 young persons within the ages of 30 and 6 within the ages of 40. And so the 30s, he did quite that. Some are no longer there, and you belong to that 40s category. But one of the first questions I want to throw at you, and it's a bit funny, the way you came aggressively around passport. Do you have anything personal about passport and immigration?
Well, thank you so much. Let me start by congratulating Mr. President on the occasion of his 2nd anniversary. Today makes it 2 years of the Renewed Hope agenda. And also to congratulate Nigerians, for the last 2 years. It's been 2 years of laying of solid background, of solid foundation, and 2 years that we hope will define the long-term stability, socio-economic stability of our great country. Having said that, for me, it's not about passport. I mean, the same aggression that we had for passport, we also had for other areas, for instance, area of border control, for instance, area of our critical assets, which you can see now in terms of our solid minerals, that the revenue has gone up, insecurity has reduced because in partnership with the Ministry of Solid Minerals, we were able to come up with the mine marshals to combat that particular issue, and of course support from other security agencies. And of course, in the area of fire service, we have also, so it's not just about passport, it's just about us being in a haste, to deliver the renewed hope, sweet experience, to Nigerians, and also for us to also understand that we represent a particular generation, and the burden of performance of that generation to a large extent lies, on us. Mr. President has been so magnanimous and so gracious in appointing young people into strategic positions. It's not just about appointing young people, but in terms of the position, because for instance, you can appoint young people as special assistant, PA, minister of this, that. But when you look at critical, for instance, who is the minister of communication, technology and digital economy? Bosun Tijani, he's young. Minister of Interior is young. Minister of Youth, Ayod and Wisdom, he's young. You look at even Minister of Steel Development, which is an emerging sector. That's the backbone of industrialization. And when the word Audu, Prince Audu, is a young person. Who is the Minister of Women Affairs? She's young. As a matter of fact, I think she just marked her 45th birthday some couple of days ago. That means that she was appointed when she was 40. She was like 43, and
I like the fact that, even though initially, I think what we're looking at when we're looking at young people was the demographic under 30.
29 actually below.
29. And Jeffrey and I were struggling to justify being on this program.
But may I correct something?
I like the fact that you're expanding it.
No. May I correct this?
By all means.
It's a constitutional thing. You do not expect a man who swore an oath to protect the Constitution to also be a man that will violate the Constitution. The Constitution makes it explicitly clear. For you to be a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you must be qualified for the House of Reps. So it means that the condition precedent of being a minister is the condition for the House of Reps.
That's age 25.
And that's 30.
30?
Yes. House of Assembly is 25. So it means that no matter how brilliant or whatever you are, that you must have attained. I mean, to the best of my knowledge, I think it's 30. So, but that's not even the key issue. But we must also look beyond even ministerial. Ministers, what we do is policy direction, your ability to be able to bring about policy in line with the renewed hope agenda. But you look at heads of agencies, Naseni and so many other agencies today, even Smidan, you know, and a couple of so many agencies, young people in exciting prospective positions.
I wasn't actually faulting it. I was actually, you know, saying that thank you for expanding the definition of what a young person is. And as Jeffrey did highlight in the introduction to you, we're happy to have you not just as Minister for Interior, but also as someone who we consider relatively young, you know, relative to what we're used to, that you're here as a Minister for Interior. And for a lot of people, you know, they're looking at, you know, the fact, your trajectory, because you are not just someone who was appointed just like that. You've been in politics for a while. You're in the House of Reps for a while, a prominent member of the House of Representatives before you came to the Federal Executive Council. You've played your part also in the private sector. I'm sure that, you know, when your time in office is up, you might still find your way back to the private sector.
Definitely.
So these are things that you have done and you've accomplished within such a short while. So what would you tell a lot of young people informed your trajectory in the private sector in such a way that you were able to say, no, I want to go into government now, you're able to win your seat, and then from there, you're already in the Federal Executive Council. It's not a path that a lot of young people have really seen carved out. What, you know, set that out for you as minister where you are today?
Well, thank you. I think the trajectory, first of all, as a Christian, and as a child of God, I would say God first. I have to say that because no matter how brilliant, intelligent you are, you need God, you know, so God first. But beyond God, after God, you know, the next thing is what I call focus, you know, like in life. And I tell a lot of young people, and I'm happy that a lot of our younger ones are here, you know, and I will tell you that for young people, I always say that you must be able to answer 3 key questions of your life, you know, and beyond politics, not just about politics, even if you desire to stay all your life in the private sector, wherever you find yourself, there are 3 key questions that you need to be able to find answers to. The first question, as a young person who is ambitious, who wants to make it in life, either in private sector, in public service, or whichever way, you must answer the first question, which is what I call the what question. What do you want to achieve? What do you want in your life? What's your ambition? Because you must understand your mission for you to have a vision.
Are young people taking notes? The what question?
So you must understand that you must first of all ask yourself, what is your mission? If you do not understand your mission, you become visionless because it is the mission that determines the vision. So you must know that, and in answering that, knowing your mission, it opens your eyes to what you need to do, which is what leads you to the next question, which is what I call the first question is the what question. That's what I said. The next one is the how question. How do you want to accomplish your vision? Like, okay, this, I want to be this by this time. Okay, how do I get there? That's the question of methodology, of what you need to have that in your head. Then the last one is, of course, the when. That is the time. You understand? You must now be able to have milestones, because if you have a mission and you have a methodology and you implement it at the wrong time. I'll give you an example. A couple of days ago, I was privileged to be a guest lecturer at Access Bank, GLS, their training for their, and I told a story. I said, listen, the founders of Access Bank, I'm using that as an example, that's Ike and Herbert, had a vision. Okay, we needed to set up a bank. The question is how? Because if you don't know what you want to do, you cannot know the road, because you must first of all know what you want to do. Then you cannot talk about it. And the question is when. You must have the right time to be able to implement it. So for me, right from when I was young, because I had that issue of what I want to achieve in my life, even beyond public office, you know. Because
so was public office, it was always in the agenda for you?
Yes.
You always wanted to be in the federal cabinet? You always wanted to be a member of the House of Reps, so how was that for you?
No, for me, I had a timeline I planned. You know, like as I said, you can't take away the place of God. I'll keep saying that, because you can have plans. It's left for, there's a place for God, which is very key. But nevertheless, on your own, as human, you need to be able to know. For me, I sat down, okay, this in the private sector, I want to spend so number of years in the private sector. And by this time, I want to be able to make myself available for public office, you know. And okay, after public office, by the grace of God, for me, this is what I want to do next. So you must have a try, because if you do not understand a pathway, if you do not try to create a pathway within your vision, honestly speaking, you will end up living somebody else's life.
All right, Honorable Minister, as Mark West said, one of the reasons we brought you is not just to talk about 2 years of Bola Tinubu administration or what you've done in the ministry. We're talking to you as a young person. So let's stay on that for a moment. So I'm sure you had an idea of what you felt public service was really all about. So when you got in and you saw, so give us the two-side experience. When you became a legislator, what was different? Now that you're a minister, what is different?
Yeah, you know, as a legislator, your job is basically lawmaking, oversight, responsibilities, of course. In most cases, you do not have executive power to do so many things, you know. It was but of course, the legislature, for me, encourages me, because there were a lot of debates. You know, you have to do a lot of research. You have to read. I think a lot of our legislators are not being given the sort of credit that they deserve, because before you can constructively contribute to a bill, you know, it takes a lot of intelligence and a lot of research, because it's the quality of what you have upstairs that you will be able to display. Then, but for the executive, of course, you know that there's a universal set, let me use that, which is the renewed hope. Then there are subsets within the universal set. For me, in the Ministry of Interior, you now have to sit down and see how to actualize the renewed hope within your space. So everything goes back again to the vision. You must understand the problem. You must understand there's something you call the problem statement. And I'll say this to a lot of my younger ones, I realize that many people fail in life, not because they are not hardworking, but many people fail in life because they are busy answering the wrong questions. You know, there are a lot of people that do not even understand the question that life has thrown, you know, at them. There are a lot of people that even the position they are, even at work, they do not understand the responsibility. What is the expected deliverable? You know, so if you do not understand the problem, if you do not understand the expected deliverable, you will have a problem. For instance, when I became Minister of Interior, Mr. President charged us. And of course, the day we signed the bond, I knew that we needed to roll up our sleeves and deliver. So the first thing we went to do with my team is to go back and say, okay, this is Ministry of Interior. Let's look at our establishment statute. Let's look at our agencies, establishment acts. What are the responsibilities? What are the things that we're supposed to deliver? Then the question now became, okay, how do we migrate from where we are to where the law expects us to be? For instance, immigration, I want to use that as an example, is in charge of border governance. So the question is, how do you do that? How do you ensure effective border governance? That's one. For instance, it is immigration that is in charge of travel documents, passports, visas, and co. And yet, our children, a lot of our younger ones, a lot of people, for instance, I'll give you an example of UK. When we came, we had over 58,000 people on the system that had applied online for passport, but in UK alone, but could not get date for capturing biometric. So the question was that, okay, how can we bridge that gap? That's where innovation, you know, comes in to say, okay, because if we say people should be coming every day to the embassy can actually take maximum of 400 people per day. So if you have 58,000 people that have applied and you need to be taking 400 per day, how many How long will it take for you to take 58 hours? So that is where innovation now has to come to say, okay, there is a problem statement. The problem statement is that the demand is more than the supply, because 58,000 people are demanding for a space that only 400 can be per day. So how do you do that? That's where the issue of the contactless came. And all we needed to do was to look at other parts of the world. You know, how have they been doing? If you go to the US, in the UK, even in Ireland and most countries, nobody goes to do biometric or go to whatever to you to renew your passport. So how do you do that? We looked at it and we adapted it. So the same thing with our issue of the visa. That's what brought about the e-visa, because we sat down and we saw that, okay, as part of the responsibility Mr. President has given to us is economic development. For you, we now saw that, okay, before now, visa was only used as a tool for migration management, you know, but in the real sense of it, visa is beyond a tool for migration management. Visa is an economic enabler, because people want to come to your country, they want to spend money in your country, but they don't want to be looking for who to lobby to get visa to your country. They expect the system to work. They expect to be able to go on one-stop shop online and apply and come. And when you look at
that response flows, sorry to interrupt you, flows into my next question. When you talk about systems working, you've talked about how systems need to work for young people. And oftentimes what a lot of Nigerians, especially young people, complain about is how the system frustrates them. We have since seen the Japa syndrome. And it's not today that Nigerians, I mean, a lot of Nigerians, especially young people, started complaining about systems that frustrated them. So first I'm going to ask you, when you were young, I mean, now that you are young, or before you got here, when you were much younger, were there parts of the system that frustrated you? How did you get past that? And now that you're in a position to change things, what are you advocating within the circles of government that institutions need to do more of, especially considering the frustrations that young people face?
No, definitely. Anybody of my age, you understand, will have that complaint. I mean, will have that reservation of the past, you know, that, and of course, even you, everybody, you know, because I believe that based on your potential, my potential, we thought that with a solid system would have, you know. Do
you want to give an example, a concrete example of something that really frustrated you?
No, there's a lot.
Maybe the passport system.
No, not just passport. It's not just about passport. The whole system, of course. Growing up was, for instance, I lost my dad when I was 10, all right? And just me and my mom, all right? And of course, I lost my dad because of issues that had to do with internal security. My dad was killed due to religious, whatever, he was coming from church, and he was killed in Kaduna in 1992. You understand? I believe, of course, that threw me off balance and brought me back to the cradle, and it was a lot tough growing up with my mother. You understand? All alone, single mother, having to bring me up with virtually no resources, and of course, the system was not obviously there to really support and whatever. So I understand the pain, but the issue is this: why did we have that? And that is why we can't sit here and just consider the pains of the past. And we must sit here and consider the pains of the past, yes, appreciate solid decisions that have been made to make sure that the future does not repeat the problems of the past. That is what leadership is about. And that's why, for me, I have to say this. I'm sorry I have to digress a bit, but I'm happy that Mr. President came and took two decisions. Because before Mr. President came on board, before May 29, 2023, what we were spending in the present was the future, all right? Because when you have a scenario whereby I was in National Assembly when we're doing appropriation, and almost 90 or more than 90% of your revenue was for debt servicing, not repayment. All right? Because I participated in appropriation, but it was for debt servicing. Automatically, you cannot spend 90% of your revenue to service debt and expect that the catalysts of economic growth will be financed, such as road, security, electricity, you understand? So, and obviously we had a system where we had cankerworms that we had, two particular conduits, like unification of, the issue of exchange rate, subsidizing exchange rate and subsidizing fuel. All right. So I was happy because that was something that held a lot of our past leaders down. Because if you don't have the resources to spend, you will not spend your people. You only spend what is available, what you can borrow. So, but when Mr. President came and took that decision from day one, I knew that yes, there might be temporary issues. And you have to remember that the road we are passing now, Nigeria is not the first to go through that route. China had gone through that route.
Minister, keeping your thoughts in line, that is the challenge again. Great decision. The government has applauded itself to say we needed to take that decision. But Nigeria has a low trust quotient for leadership and promises and fulfillment. How does the president intend to communicate to the effect that this is going to get better? Because that is the only thing being said, and the people are not happy.
Well, let me say this very clearly. And I'm speaking for myself. I'm not Minister of Information. But I'm speaking as a young man who built his business at the age of 24. I built my IT company at the age of 24, all the way till I got to National Assembly at 37. So what it means basically is that for like 13 years of my life, I built a business. So I have been in the private sector, and now that I'm in government, I can see both sides. But I tell you that the size of our economy can only grow when you free resources. That's number one. Number two, when you now judiciously utilize those resources. It's not just about freeing resources, but effective utilization of those resources. And when you are now able to take long-term decisions, and of course, when you take these long-term decisions, there are always what you call milestones that you can use to evaluate the progress that you are making as a country. The issue is this: Mr. President inherited something, and I have to say this, a system whereby before he came on board, so many Nigerians have lost faith and trust in government. So people just believe that government does not care. So when it's like this proverbial issue, a child who keeps shouting, wolf, 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 you know, and people will come, nothing happens, wolf, 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 people will come, nothing happens. The day he will shout and there is a real danger, nobody will come. So when people lose trust, it takes time to rebuild trust. And that is what I believe this particular administration is doing. And how? Look at the economy. We're opening up space. The investments are increasing. And two things that really makes me happy, and that gives me fulfillment of being proud of being a member of this particular administration. Two things I'm so happy about. I'm not an economist, I'm an engineer by training, but two things. Number one, the issue of the Nigeria First. Because that is the real way back for industrialization. Because there is no way, if you do not legislate that, if you do not have that as a policy, there is no way that indigenous manufacturers will be able to compete with people coming from China, where there are cheaper labor, more there's electricity. So for us to be able to protect the what's it called, local industry, Nigeria First, that shows a president who is looking inwards and looking towards backward integration. Right. That's number one. Number two is, of course, the issue of the Naira for crude. You understand? Because for the first time, you can see that Dangote refinery and whatever, the prices of refined fuel is coming down, despite the fact that it's increasing or whatever in the international market. Why? Because today, we are no more depending on issue of the exchange, and we are freeing a lot of pressure. And that is why you see that Naira for a long time now has been stable, 1.5, 1.6, and whatever. So the key issue I'm just saying is this. It's unfortunate that decisions that should have been taken decades ago, we're taking it now. But like what I said, even if it is the last option, if surgery is the last option at the last minute to save a dying soul, you do the surgery. You won't say because it is late, let the patient die. And that's the same thing with Nigeria. It might have been late. Maybe we're just doing everything at the same time now, but it's something that we need to do to save, save our country.
Fantastic points you've raised. So would you promise us to stay behind to respond to